Alright, so today I'm at the Port of Redwood City. This is a location I've painted before, but it's been probably 15 years. I used to teach sailing here, and I often thought this would be a good place to paint, but then when I came back and tried to paint here, it was really difficult to find a composition that I was happy with. I've been looking at the work of Eugène Boudin. He's the painter that inspired Monet to do plein air painting. And I was looking at some of his compositions and it kind of clicked, and I thought, you know, I bet I could do a Boudin style painting at the Port of Redwood City. So here I am. Let me show you what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking of working with this scene right here, this racing boat in the foreground, and then there's some docks in the distance, and then the East Bay Hills. His compositions tend to be really simple, almost like putting the horizon on the lower third, and then having just kind of a band of interest along the horizon. You know, typically boats with masts. I'm going to work with this one mast here, but then there's like a crane and some other industrial stuff in the distance. So that's kind of the idea. All right, so usually I don't tone my panels. I'm toning with burnt sienna today. And I noticed that in Boudin's paintings, he sometimes would tone and then leave large areas actually of the tone showing through. So I'm gonna experiment with that today. I used to tone in the past, and then I decided to use the white of the panel to create illumination. In particular in the sky, like I'd like to have a transparent sky, and kind of like the way a watercolor painting works, using the white of the support or the panel to kind of create luminosity. But today, since I'm experimenting, I'm going to try something different. And with toning, you know, you don't want it, at least I don't want it to be too dark. I want to keep the value of the tone very light. And you'd be amazed, even this, which seems pretty pale, this will pop through with there'll be a lot of saturation, surprisingly, in the finished painting. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm going to put the horizon about the third. All right, so the first thing I want to do is just make sure I get the elements in the proper place. So I haven't even done any detail as far as like the drawing goes. But I do like the arrangement. Obviously that racing boat right in the foreground, some of this industrial equipment over here, hills in the background. So I like the arrangement, and now I can go in and kind of further define some of these shapes. All right, so I've sketched in a bit more detail here. The most difficult thing is getting the geometry of this hull correct. I think it's close enough, and I'm not going to add a lot of detail as far as what's on the deck. There's a strong shadow pattern here, and then just a bunch of light random objects on the deck. And then, so now I'll just start defining some darks.
Nice painting.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So now I've got some of the darks established, and already I can, you know, get an idea of whether I like the composition or not. And I feel like so far so good. What I was hoping is that this sort of passage here would lead the eye out, and I think that's going to work. The big design elements on the boat are, you know, the fact that the back is lit and the side is in shadow. So there's like a strong light and dark pattern there. So I don't have to add a lot of detail. Same is true out here. I don't have to be very detailed with it. So and then the rest of it is just all sky and water and these distant hills. So pretty simple, but the drawing, definitely the drawing in here is sort of complicated. I want to make sure the geometry of the hull is, you know, more or less correct. Okay, I'm mixing up a color for the water. This is ultramarine, burnt sienna, and a little bit of cadmium yellow medium, and then obviously titanium white to lighten it up. So the next thing is just gonna, you know, be filling in the sky and the water. I got to get the horizon line correct here. I kind of got messed up, but so a few things to clean up, but I'm going to try to keep it as loose as possible. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Definitely don't want to overwork this. I think I'm actually going to leave this sort of pale reddish color on the hull, and yeah, I'll just live with it for a while, see how I feel. Definitely left a lot of the burnt sienna showing through, and I went with vertical strokes in the sky, which I think kind of plays nicely against the more horizontal strokes in the water. There are some areas of like transparency here, and then obviously even little areas where, you know, the panel is left uncovered and you can see some of that burnt sienna coming through. So there it is. So I really like the idea of taking inspiration from classic paintings or classic painters and then trying to emulate their compositions or their brushwork or paint application. I think it's one thing to look at a painting, but it's another thing to try to do a painting in the spirit of another painter or a painting. You learn a lot when you have to actually try to reproduce strokes or, like I said, reproduce a composition. As usual, let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, I have a bunch of extra videos on my Patreon. page, and there's a link for that in the description. Like I said, it really helps support the channel. It keeps me making these videos, so check that out. And other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.